for the introduction very much. I mean, you covered so much, I think, of what has been happening in the U.S.-India defense partnership over the past many years. But I remember very well being in Mumbai when we first announced the major defense partnership with India. And that was a major, major milestone in, I think, cementing our partnership here. Of course, the Artemis Accords being something that was signed in the past few years, something that I was also very happy to work on. I'm very happy to be here to be part of these defense news conclaves, and thank you to CUTS. Several U.S. aerospace companies have established partnerships with Indian counterparts, facilitating technology transfer and enhancing indigenous defense production capabilities, including some work that's taking place here in Hyderabad. Both Boeing and Lockheed Martin have set up joint ventures here with Tata, and I think we'll be hearing from some of their implementers as well today. And I've had a chance to visit both, and what an impressive array of production is coming out, and just the diversity also of the workforce, I have to say, is really something to be commended. The U.S.-India Major Defense Partnership has become a pillar of global peace and security today, just in the 8 years since it was first announced. Achieving the full potential of this strategic partnership, from deep below the water to far above the atmosphere, and across the vast scope of human endeavor in health, energy, education, and security, is immensely consequential for all of us. And I want to thank the U.S. Consulate in Kolkata for supporting the workshop and for inviting us to be part of this as you take this really important work around India and finally up to Chennai and then to Delhi. And again, thank you to CUTS for implementing, and to all of you for being here today and recognizing what an important evolution this is in our two countries' bilateral ties. So thank you.
We are today partnering in joint exercises between our armed forces, have established working groups on issues ranging from cyberspace, critical technologies, quantum physics, undersea domain awareness, and maritime security, to now, as was said in the first session, talking about co-producing and co-development of major systems. The initiatives in these sectors cover AI, next generation telecommunications, space technologies, biotech, etc. Now, with India, growing its own growing commitments towards playing a very prominent role in the international arena, including in the Indo-Pacific through the IPOI, SAGAR, and other issue-based partnerships with like-minded nations, it has ensured that any discussion on the region as well as on these issues needs to include India. What are India's expectations from this defense technology cooperation that we are talking about? And while we have often heard about what India's role would be in the Indo-Pacific, I hope our panelists here would be able to tell us what is the role that India envisages for the US in the larger matrix of the Indo-Pacific. With this, I invite our first panelist, Lieutenant General Anil Kapoor, to present his remarks. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
With future contours of strategic alliance is actually the hallmark of the 21st century, epitomizing mutual dependence, meeting mutual aspirations, all this in the light of the ongoing Cold War 2.0 between US and China, and the hegemonistic design of China in the Indo-Pacific. I dare say this happens at a time when defense and security is of paramount importance globally. We are seeing what is happening in terms of war between Ukraine and Russia, and of course Israel and Palestine. This brings to the fore the ISET initiative on critical and emerging technologies, which actually becomes therefore the hub around which all this will be achieved. And I'd like to call this ISET, or rather rechristen it as integrated support in critical and emerging technologies. They're not really an initiative. It is an integration which has to happen. Today, India has the advantage of a youth bulge, which is the demographic dividend. To quote some figures, the population of the US is 350 million. The population of Indian youth is 700 million, which is just twice the number. So that is the kind of youth bulge, that is the kind of demographic dividend that we have. And therefore, the next is, we talked of Sensex. I think it's a great initiative. Today, India is endowed with about 1 lakh plus startups, out of which 111 are unicorns, with about 350 billion, and we got about 55 gazelles who would be unicorns in another 2 years. We got about 100 plus cheetahs who are going to be unicorn in the next 4 years. So that is the landscape. So one is looking at Indus X becoming a deliverable program like the engine in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So to summarize the first part of the playbook, one is looking at a product lens for capability development, a skill lens for harmonizing and harnessing the power of youth bulge, and a R&D setup to create a national R&D fervor on the lines of DARPA. And I think that kind of a mutual agreement, a strategic partnership, joint venture, call whatever, in effect will create the impact that we are looking at through this Indo-US deliverable program. Thank you. I'll come back again to cover the balance.
Well, understanding joint intelligence assessments, that's something which mostly int operatives would be talking about. And int operatives don't talk. So if people at the tactical level, people who've been in it the way I have been, would probably come out and have some ideas which they can share, which are at the tactical level. But guys who've operated at the strategic level will certainly not come out openly about what they've been through until it's already 30 years down the line. So Dulat comes and speaks about it much later, 30, 35 years down the line, if you've kept track of Mr. Dulat. So intelligence assessments by themselves, well, intelligence instills caution, it brings out secrecy, there is suspicion, but it also involves a lot of perseverance. There is a constant effort, constant painstaking effort. It could be dangerous. There's a lot of urgency involved at times at the last point of implication or contact, but there's a huge potency in intelligence. So when we talk about intelligence assessments, we are not just talking about information sharing, which is of course a major part of joint intelligence assessments, but we are also talking about sharing of assessments, which is processed information with possible outcomes that has impact on policy or on operations.
6 nations, 25 ships. You couldn't get it better than that. And we all walked away. It took us around 14 years to come back together. And hopefully it stays. But a point of caution here. We must put Malabar aside and not add it to the Quad menu. Perhaps we can work better under that way, but a little later. Because Malabar in 1998, when we made the Buddha smile for the second time, military to military relations and doors were kept open due to the kick lighter proposal. So my question is, then why leave India out? Then I take you back to the ghost of the 1960s, the 1950s, when we were looking at developing our own submarine arm, and we found the doors from the Brits and the US side closed, which forced us to go to Russia. So if you're going to look at defense industrialization, building equipment together, then you have to keep your minds open and open doors. But more or less on a bilateral scale, I would say that we've got a terrific relationship going. We are going to develop jet engines for our LCA, which is already an ongoing process. And then, of course, we have a number of logistics agreements. The repair of US ships. Now, these are not US naval ships. It's what we call auxiliaries.
But today, fast forward 4-5 years back, today we have recently seen the listing of Azad Engineering, who is also a supply chain partner of Boeing, just 2 years back. And 2 years prior to that, they were a very small company. So the growth of the MSMEs in the country are spectacularly, quick. And in fact, the advantage which Hyderabad has apparently is that we have close to, our statistics says 1,000 MSMEs who are dedicated into aerospace and defense in various tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 levels, of which probably 200 of them may be really serious players who are mature enough to take on technology. Because one of the main botherations or complaints that the OEMs give when they're insisting on the tech transfer is that the industry is not mature enough to kind of absorb the technology. But this is a hub which for the last 40-50 years have all the DRDO and the DPSU establishments here, which has nurtured a large number of smaller MSMEs. Today, many of them are really, really large and probably offering products which are competing with the global OEMs. So we have an ecosystem which has been doing military grade manufacturing for probably 3-4 decades. And that's again another important point, because unlike auto manufacturing, the ethos of aerospace, defense, and space manufacturing is zero error, high value, and obviously it's like the volumes are quite low.
The China factor has been talked about. I've divided it into, I find, 6 main shared concerns which led to this current dynamism in US-India relations. One, of course, is the rise of China and China's continuous assertiveness and the desire to evolve as a dominant global player, not just economically, technologically, but militarily as well. I remember when 20 years back when I was in the NSCS, and there would be these meetings that we need to do something counter China technologically, and how China's perfected the art of reverse engineering. And could India do something like that? So China has encountered challenges. I mean, we do not know the state of its aircraft carrier. They've put it on, but is it as effective as they would like us to believe? But the fact of the matter is we're still talking about reverse engineering, and I think this, the recent agreements with the United States would help us move forward. So the China factor definitely made India and the United States look towards one another, and leading to a reconfiguration in both our governments, both our administrations successively. Despite whichever government comes to power, I find that there is an across-board desire to move forward and strengthen this partnership. The second is shifting alliances. The traditional alliances and partnerships, in this rapidly changing world, those are under stress.